You're listening to the Spicy Dividend.
Hey, what is up, everyone? It is Scott with the Spicy Dividend podcast. Welcome back to the latest episode. Thank you so much for everyone for listening, whether it's Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor directly, wherever it is you are listening. Thank you so much. But wait a minute. Are you listening on YouTube? That's right. I'm putting the podcast episodes up on YouTube, but no, this is not my return to YouTube. I just figured, hey, it doesn't hurt to reach a bigger audience, and I already had an audience established there. You know, they probably all left by now since I say, I quit YouTube. But don't consider this a return to YouTube. I'm just posting my podcast on there because why not? More exposure. It gives me a chance at more revenue, even though I don't think I deserve it. And it gives the fans a chance to communicate me in other ways other than Twitter and Instagram. But if you're on Twitter or Instagram, you can follow me on Twitter at DGenDividends, D-E-G-E-N Dividends, or on Instagram at Degenerate Dividends. So this should be a nice, lighthearted podcast. We're going over an awesome milestone that I hit today. A comment on my Instagram DMs that pissed me off. And we're going to touch on how the portfolio, my current portfolio, is structured and why I'm so happy with it. So here we go with another episode of the Spicy Dividend podcast. And okay, let's talk about the nice little milestone that I hit today. So my immediate investment portfolio, and what I'm saying by this is my individual account, which is now on E-Trade. I was on M1 Finance, now on E-Trade. So my E-Trade individual account along with my 401k, that is what I'm considering my immediate investment portfolio. I am not including any bank account, liquid net worth, and I'm not including any emergency fund that I have stashed away. So just 401k, individual account, that total has surpassed a year's of salary for me, and that it's an awesome milestone to hit. The savings milestone, I guess you could say, for a lot of finance people out there is that you should have your salary saved by age 30. And even though part of this is my 401k, the individual account has grown in pretty much 2 years' time from $350 to $45K. So I have funded this massively. I have caught up dramatically. If you ask me where I was at age 25, my immediate investment worth would probably be around $7K. So the fact that it is over a year's worth of salary for me, it's just incredible. This grind has been absolutely amazing and definitely worthwhile. Let me click off some stupid ads here. But everything has just been amazing. The consistency of me adding a minimum of $30 every single trading day into my account, no matter what brokerage I'm using. So even though I'm not buying much shares the past couple weeks, I'm still building up that cash, still building up the overall account value. Your mindset kind of changes when you go from fractional shares to whole share purchasing. But nonetheless, the account is just growing like a weed. $350 to $45K in less than 2 years. And the thing that makes this remarkable is that I don't really do anything that special. I don't make that much money. So when I say like, I passed a year's salary, I'm not bringing in $100K. You know what I mean? Like I'm not even close to that. But we have passed it. This is a nice major milestone to me. If you include like bank accounts and my my emergency fund, yeah, I passed this probably like 4 or 5 months ago maybe. But I don't want to include that. I want to make it just investments/retirement accounts. So an absolutely awesome milestone to hit. But like I said, I don't make that much money. You know, maybe to some people I make a decent amount of money, but to a lot of people I know in the investment community, I make peanuts, okay? So putting in a minimum of $30 every day, that's a lot of money. And I've said it in previous podcast episodes before, I believe so anyway, that I save up a minimum of 45% of my income. And it's just me being in the fortunate position to be debt-free. The house that I'm living in, I do pay rent to my wife, but it is my wife's house. The debt is not in my name. My car is paid off. My student loans are paid off. I worked very aggressively to pay those off. So even though I'm disappointed in myself for not investing a lot earlier. Like I would have liked to have started around age 21, 22 when I had an income coming in that's actually substantiated. But I worked really hard to pay off my debts, so I can't be too upset at myself for not investing early. And now that I have paid off a lot of my debts, and now I just have minimum monthly expenses, I try and make it as small as possible, being as frugal as possible as I can, besides gambling. Let's not get into that. But just living that lifestyle and being debt-free, essentially debt-free, it has now set me up where I can be in this aggressive position, and that's how I'm approaching it. I'm being very aggressive with it. I mean, come on, 350 to 45K. Obviously, I'm being super duper aggressive. I'm catching up to all those years that I missed, and I'm just setting myself up for a better future. The compounding is just going to get better and better because I have a dividend-only, a cash flow generating portfolio, and over 90% of my holdings pay monthly. So I'm trying to make the compounding as fast as possible. If you if you listen to my last podcast episode, you know how I felt about Kenny Robinson kind of throwing monthly dividend stocks in the back burner. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of what he was saying. I get the overall message about quality stocks, but nonetheless, I believe in compounding as fast as humanly possible. Just to give kind of like a story to this and why I believe this. A couple years ago, there was a guy on Reddit who, again, this is sports betting. You know, I love my sports betting, but he turned $300 into $100K in a month and a half in an absolute miraculous run. But what really happened was it just showed the power of compounding interest, because he would essentially he started with $300. He placed a bet. He won like $150, right? So his sports betting account was then at $450. He would then place the $450 on a bet, win like 20 to 50% in that range, and then his account would be at $600. Bet the $600, win, account would be at $900. Bet the account, win, account's at $1,200. And you get where this is going, but the compounding was so damn fast. I mean, obviously it's a streak from the gods. He won like 27 in a row before losing, but you get what I'm saying. Compounding and compounding quickly is very important. So I take it the monthly route. If you don't want to go the route, that's fine. And there's ways to construct your portfolio where you don't have to own monthly payers to get paid monthly. Obviously, you can structure it quarterly and then do the 1, 4, 7, 11, and then 2, 5, 8, 12 route, and blah, 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 blah. You understand what I'm saying with the quarterly payers. But I choose all monthly. It compounds a hell of a lot quickly, especially when you're adding money into the portfolio constantly. Again, I've kind of backed off purchasing a little bit, but nonetheless, I want everything to compound as frequent as possible. So the milestone I hit today, absolutely awesome. Passed a year's salary, age 28, going to be age 29 in March. So I'm glad that I hit this before 30 years old. Next, we're going to talk about the account right now, the individual account in E-Trade, how it's structured, what's the account value out, and why I'm in love with the current structure of it so much. So let's get into it. Okay, so I actually posted this on Twitter and Instagram before I did this podcast episode. Excuse me. But the portfolio is at a total value, cash included, of $45,100. So we're doing just awesome. But how is the portfolio structured and why do I love it so much? So this might surprise a lot of people because I'm very aggressive with my dividends. I'm very aggressive with the yield and the compounding. So the way that this portfolio is laid out, you might be surprised. So here it is. My portfolio right now, 1% other, 3% cash, 51% stocks, 46% bonds. Now, why is this kind of shocking? Because my portfolio currently, as it sits, if everything were going to ex-dividend tomorrow, my portfolio yields around 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, around that range. It varies month to month. But so we're going to say around 5.8% this yields. And 46% of my portfolio is in bonds. Now, the first thing you might say is, okay, are you just investing in, high yield, junk rated bonds or really bad bonds or all long term, or what's the deal there? No, the highest yielding bond position that I own, a certain bond ETF, I forget the name of it, pays 2.8%. That is the highest bond payer that I own. So that yield is coming from the 50% stocks in my portfolio. So a breakdown value-wise, I have $23,000 in stocks, $20,000 in bonds, 200 in other. I got to see what other is. That's one position, but $215 in other. And then I'm holding $1,180 in cash, which makes up 3% of the portfolio. So $23,000 in stocks, $20,000 in bonds. So if you take the information that I just given you, where my portfolio is 5.8% yield, and the bonds section of my portfolio, which is 46%, averages about 2.5 range, you might be saying, oh, well, then your stocks are just ultra aggressive, risky, crappy quality stocks. And not really. When you think about it, the highest positions, individual positions I have in this portfolio are PCI, which you could make the argument is the least quality, I guess you would say, of the high positions that I own. PCI is PIMCO Credit Income and Dynamic Fund. So a lot of it is debt instrument based, mortgage based, just high income, like a 7 to 8% yielder pays monthly. That's probably, if you want to argue that that's the least quality, highest position I own, yeah, okay, I go for it. Next highest is, Realty Income Corp. Nothing wrong with that. Next highest is GLPI, Gaming Leisure Properties. And tied with that is Main Street Capital Corp., which is a BDC. GLPI is a REIT. O is a REIT. The other high positions that I own are Vanguard's High Yield Dividend Fund and Vanguard's International High Dividend Fund. So really, it's not that risky for 5.8%. And it's really not that risky as it may seem, considering I'm holding 46% bonds. So let's take the high theoretical and say, like, bonds don't lose their value. Okay, this is obviously not realistic, but a lot of people think of bonds as like almost holding cash and you're just getting a little bit of yield. Like they're super conservative, super safe. So let's just say bonds never lose their value. And let's say all my stocks went to zero. Well, half my account would still be salvaged. If all my stock positions went to zero, I would still salvage half of my account. Do you know what I'm saying? So yes, there is some risk in my account. Obviously, when your yield is above the 4 to 5% range, you're going to see extended risk. But the way that my portfolio is structured with 51% stocks, 46% bonds, it's a hell of a lot easier to take those risks. It's calculated risk. It's risk that makes sense for how young I am at age 28. But at the same time, the positions that you could consider from an outside perspective a little bit riskier, I don't think they're as risky. I don't think they're insanely risky considering the type of equity they are, or the type of entity, I should say, the type of position, meaning REITs, one BDC in Main Street Capital Corp, and a pretty much an income cash flow machine in PIMCO Credit and Income Fund. I don't consider it that bad. People freak out when you get to high yielders when you talk about stuff like, like an Altria or like a Ford, or when Coca-Cola starts going up there in yield, because it's like, it's, or AT&T, like it's not common for these blue chip companies to have yields going from 4 to 8%, but positions that are focused on income returns, 4 to 8% is really not that out of the question. Now, when you start going 9, 10, 11 plus, then you start getting some questionable positions. But be smart. Look in what you're investing and what the overall objective of you investing in that position is. So there still is the internal debate you have to go through between what is quality and what is, just a crappy high yield payer that's going to cut its dividend over time, something like an AGNC, something like a PSEC. Calamo's Total Investment Returns, the Guggenheims, stuff like that, where it's their high yielders, but they decrease over time. Don't invest in those style companies. But if you're investing in something like a PCI or a PDI, the PIMCO funds that are high yielding, but they've never cut their distributions and they've never paid return of capital in years. So the income that they are given to you is actual long-term gains or income from the assets that they are holding in their underlying portfolio. So know the difference between taking a stupid risk and a calculated risk. And I believe all the positions in my equity side, non-bond related, they're calculated risks that make a lot of sense to the type of portfolio that I'm trying to construct, a cash flow heavy oriented portfolio. They make a lot of sense. And it just, it's such an awesome balance to me. Maybe I'd like to get it to a 50-50 position, but obviously cash is going to eat into some percentage of the account. And I like that I'm building up cash. I was never a believer in holding cash on M1 Finance because you can buy fractional. So what's the point? But now that I've switched over to E-Trade and you have to buy full shares, you kind of have to switch the mentality a little bit. Wait for more discounts than you would with something like an M1 Finance where you just pump every single day and let the compounding work its magic. You have to be a little bit more patient with your buys when you're buying full shares, just because, you know, on M1 Finance, I had like 30 bond funds, and a lot of them are over the like $80 to $90 a share. So I could just put 30 into the entire fund, buy like $1 of each every single day and just let it go. You know, now with full shares, it's like, okay, I have to really conserve my money. And if I want to buy a share, it's going to be one share most likely. And, you know, you're not going to go heavy into bonds when you do purchase them. So that is where the portfolio is out. Heavy mix of bonds into my aggressive yields. So really like the way it's structured. It's perfect for the way I invest. That's the way I invest. So let's get into what irked me on Instagram. What is making Dividend Grinder so angry today? Okay, so I get random Instagram can you talk? I get random Instagram messages all the time, right? Asking a wide variety of things, whether it's investing, how do you invest, what would you recommend? Even sports betting now, I'm starting to get some of those DMs. But one of them that really irked me is some people ask questions because they're generally curious. You know, maybe they're new to it or they're just trying to expand their horizon. Absolutely nothing wrong with asking questions. I hope when you're learning, you ask a ton of questions. Even when you feel like you know it, it's still good to ask honest to God, helpful questions to just broaden your horizon on the subjects at hand. There's nothing wrong with improving knowledge ever. But there's people that ask questions to just be a dick. And you might say, I don't understand what you're talking about. Well, here's what I mean by that. So I got an Instagram message saying, hey, why do you invest in dividend stocks when inflation is, and he gave like a absurdly high rate. He was like, why do you invest in dividend stocks when the inflation rate is like 4%, which is absurd. And in the last decade, it's been like 2%. But anyway, if you're like a new investor, you're new to dividend investing, that's a legitimate, valid question, right? That comes up a lot when people are first learning about dividend investing or they have doubts about dividend investing is, you know, why do you do it if the inflation rate, you know, you're barely beating inflation rate, especially people who believe in dividend growth investing only. You know, your yields start out around 2 to 3% and you're barely, if in some cases you might be losing out to inflation if you're just going in terms of yield. But it's a legitimate question if you're just starting out. But I could tell this guy was not starting out. And why do I do that? Because on Instagram, you can get a lot of accounts that are just kind of extremely niche based and they're kind of bot-like. And what I mean by that is I click, whenever I answer a question on Instagram or respond to it, I always look at their profile first to see what they're about, right? Because sometimes, you know, if it's just like a normal person, a normal account, then I feel like, okay, it's just a genuine question. Like, he's just curious. He or she is just curious. Just answer them with a nice, honest question. Be nice. This guy, however, I noticed that his account was solely dedicated to swing trading and essentially making profits really super quick, right? Like almost like a get rich quick, not entirely like that, but his whole mentality was swing trading. And he just came off really dickish in all of his responses. And I didn't act like an asshole. Like he said it and I'm like, well, I'm yielding over 5.5%. And he's like, oh, so you're barely making pennies off your yield compared to inflation. And right off the bat, I'm like, okay, this guy's an asshole. He thinks just like swing trading is the god of all investing, right? I can immediately sense that from people. I can immediately sense what type of person you are just by how you phrase your questions and how you phrase your responses. I can tell this guy's just a dickhead, right? So me being the dickhead that I am, if you cock off to me, I'm going to cock off right back, right? But so as he says that, it's like, oh, you're just making pennies. Like, that's pathetic. So I'm like, oh, I guess capital appreciation just doesn't exist. Because, my capital appreciation, I'm like 8 to 9, maybe 10% by now. And I'm not even including the 5 to 6% that I get from the positions themselves. So I'm like, so I said that. And then I honestly deleted the conversation so I don't have an exact response from him. But he said another dickish thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm just saying, like, what is this guy's issue? Like, who gives a shit? Like, I like investing in dividend stocks. You like swing trading. Clearly you're not interested in investing in dividends. So why do you give a shit? Like, why do you think you're the alpha male? But anyway, I cock off and I say, this is as dumb a question as me asking you, what's the point of swing trading when you have short-term capital gains tax? And his response, you can tell he's just an asshole, was, fuck you, it's not a dumb question. So, look, everyone has their own way of investing. Don't put it down. If a guy sees success swing trading or day trading or investing in all these high-risk bonds or high-risk funds, and he's seeing success, he or she's seeing success, and they are, constantly engaging in the investments, why would you want to, like, put it down, essentially? Like, I'm not going to go to a day trader's account and be like, why do you day trade when the risk is that high, blah, blah, blah. And, like, you can tell, if you look at my page, it's clearly a dividend-oriented account. So why would I, as a dividend-oriented account with no interest in day trading, go to other day trading pages and just spam them with stupid questions? Like, why do you do this? It's so risky. Why do you do this? The taxes are inefficient. Why do you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And why? What is the point? What is the point? You just come off as a selfish idiot. You think your way is the only way, the best way, and, everything else is just dog shit. But you, as the human being, are the dog shit. So, hope you enjoyed this little rant session. Hope you enjoyed episode 16 of the Spicy Dividend. Wow, episode 16. We are going up. I would like to do more and more episodes. I know I've said that recently, and this has been like 2 weeks since I recorded the last episode. But I really would like to get back into it, especially in Pennsylvania where it's winter, it's cold, it's dark as hell at 4:45. I can't go outside for my walks anymore and enjoy the outdoors because I walk outside, my face freezes if I sneeze. So I would like to come in and start talking some investments again into the crowd, into the community. Thank you all so much for listening. Hey, if you're following on YouTube, you can actually comment. Yay! But if you're a follower on Twitter or Instagram, please let me know if you have any thoughts on the episode. I will see everyone in the next one.